madness, insanity, you can kind of sum up as be out of touch with reality. And this is something this is not a clinical definition, okay? But I think it's a common sense, practical definition. That when someone is out of contact with reality, and they're kind of in their own little imaginary world of delusions, that, in my book, is insanity. Insanity comes from the, not healthy, not mentally healthy. Our human nature was created by God in His own image. We have immortal souls with the power to know what is true and to love what is good and to enjoy what is beautiful. We express that by what we call the three transcendentals. The true, the good, and the beautiful are the object of our thoughts. That's what makes us like God. We can find ultimately the true, the good, and the beautiful in God Himself. And God designed us to find the true and the good and the beautiful, truth and goodness and beauty in Himself forever in heaven. That's everlasting life. Well, our minds are meant to be in contact with the reality that God created. Even through the body, the senses of the body are meant to be in contact with the material reality. We're in contact with the spiritual realities, the intangibles like justice and mercy and things like that make up the warp and woof of our thoughts and the things that are really important to us. But even the bodies that God made to unite to our souls are meant to be in contact with the reality of this world, the material realities of the world too. And we can take these sensible experiences we have of the things of the world through our senses. We can then, in our minds, abstract from them and actually think in terms of essences. Again, realities. That's how we're supposed to be. That's how God designed us, okay? The first great break from that, though, was the rebellion against God, which we know as original sin, when Lucifer tempted Eve by saying, God knows that if you defy Him by eating of this fruit, your eyes will be opened. You will be as gods. You will basically determine your own reality, your own right from wrong, your own true and false. You will be as gods, basically, and not be subject. The whole idea is there. It's the same temptation He continues to address to each and every one of us. Be your own God. You don't have to put up with this. It's the temptation to which He succumbed Himself. I will not serve, and He said, I will place my throne in the highest heavens, right? So anyway, when I say that pride is insanity, it basically comes down to the idea that when we are proud, we are not in touch with reality. And pride, of course, is the root of sin. And sin is absolutely the rebellion against reality, against God's sovereignty, against God's majesty, against His goodness. Sin is a rejection of all of that reality. Pride distorts our understanding of who we are. Pride takes us out of, as it were, the service of God. Pride, in a sense, rejects God's sovereignty over us. And like Satan says, I will not serve, I will serve myself instead of God. To the extent that pride, therefore, clouds and even disconnects us from the reality of who we actually are, that's insanity. And the more proud we are, the more insane we are, the more disconnected we are with reality of who we are in relationship with God, in relationship with each other. And you can see that pride actually induces a person to make a fool of himself. No matter how smart he is, he's not as smart as he thinks he is. No matter how clever he is, he's not as clever as he thinks he is. And so he overestimates his own abilities, his own powers, his own goodness, whatever you want to call it. And he puts too much stock in himself, and inevitably he's going to come to ruin, rack and ruin. The proud person is arrogant. The proud person is overbearing. The proud person is just very cynical toward others. The proud person demands the adoration of others. He's very boastful. Satan does all this. So in other words, the pride makes us like Satan himself. And inevitably this leads to ruin. When one tries to be God, he finds out in short order he makes a very, very poor God. For some people, you'd hope that would be humbling. But for most very proud people, it's not humbling at all. It's humiliating. And you can always tell pride because somebody is very ambitious about accomplishing great things, making a name for himself, as St. Paul says, making him out to be something, whereas he is nothing. And then he gets rebuked or meets with failure or catastrophe. What does a proud person do? He becomes completely downcast. And he becomes completely downcast, totally depressed. And he goes to the other extreme of, oh, woe is me, woe is me. You know, he becomes totally consumed with self-pity. Mm-hmm. And that's a real characteristic of Satan, too. He's consumed with self-pity. And whether he's at the one extreme of sort of manic, of thinking himself like godlike unto himself, and totally independent and able to do whatever he wishes, right? Or whether he's at the other extreme, being so downcast and crushed by failure. Either way, it's pride that's doing that to him. We have to be very, very wary of going either way. Pride so distorts our own self-image that it actually takes us out of contact with reality. And we're living a life of illusion and delusion. That is going to be the source of an enormous amount of trouble for the proud person. He's going to end badly. And unfortunately, he's going to hurt a lot of people living out his pride. God will try to humble him. But again, that is to rescue him from his pride and call him back to a certain sense of his own humble reality. But all too often, the pride rebels against the humbling, experience, and really just reacts very badly in feeling humiliated and resentful, and rebels against being humbled. Right? He resists being humbled. But the point is, you are basically living in a world that you've created for your own experiences, your own emotions, your own feelings, and so on. It's all about your feelings, and you're insane. You're out of touch with reality. The only reality you know, the only reality you could even acknowledge is the reality of your own personal feelings, your own personal interests, serving yourself. Whatever makes you feel good is your reality. This is insanity.
Yeah.